Hey everyone, welcome to today's live stream. I'm Zack, your host, and I'm with 4.0 Solutions. We go live here every week at Tuesday noon Central. We're here to answer your questions. We're doing this 5-part mini series about use cases for unified namespace. So today we're going to be talking about a use case that I worked on in the CNC industry, manufacturing of really large products that take really long time to manufacture. We're talking weeks. And how do you use OEE? Yeah, how do you even apply OEE to something like that where the cycle times are weeks and not seconds or minutes? Hey Harry, hey David, hey Alan, welcome. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about. Let me share this out on the Discord real quick, just so that way. Oh, don't want to end the stream. That would be bad. So Walker is traveling this week, so he's not going to be here. But yeah, we're going to be continuing the series. So. But we also have some additional questions. As always, feel free to ask your questions live. Always get great engagement when we do that. So, and yeah, feel free to subscribe to this audio podcast on iTunes, Spotify. We're on Amazon Music and Audible now. So if you have those apps, you can listen to our podcast pretty much everywhere. 4.0 Solutions podcast. So thank you. Yeah, let's get into it. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this background music off. Yeah, we get some people like it, some people don't, so I'll just go ahead and turn it off. So yeah, I do want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, which is our Digital Factory Mastermind. We've been doing the 12-week accelerator program. We're on week 10 right now, so there's literally like 2 more weeks. So the group is going through supply chain part 2, which was the last, the homework for last week. So we've gotten some really good feedback from that. Also, as we're going through this product and all the first 12 modules of our mastermind program, we're going back through and editing it. We're finding a lot of like golden nuggets and extracting those out and just organizing the content better, and just condensing it to make the training is even more valuable. We're also talking about rolling out our enterprise training program to more companies. So we've been doing our enterprise training pilot, which is basically all of the training across IIoT University, from mentorship, mastermind, packaged, polished and packaged into a really great product that we're really proud of. We're talking about potentially getting some translations done for that, like into other languages like Spanish, German, potentially even Chinese. So I know Cheryl's going to kill me because she's probably like saying like, Zach, we don't have the resources to do that. We're trying to get, the English version in order first before we roll it out to multi languages. But it is actually a request that is coming from our customers. So, if one enterprise customer wants, multi-language enterprise industry 4.0 training, then other enterprises are likely going to want that too. And we work with some of the biggest enterprises that you know of. So that's something that we are working on right now, is refining the enterprise training product and also rolling it out to potentially multiple languages. So to be announced on that. We're also working with additional sponsors that are not the sponsor of this video, but a new sponsor that we're working with is Clarify. We may have talked about this before, but Clarify.io, new sponsor of the channel. We're sort of changing the way our sponsorships work. So we used to do where we give the opportunity for one brand, one company to sponsor like an entire month's worth of content. And we changed that to really allow more, really companies that want to sponsor a video to like really get more creative control over the outcome of that video. Like a lot of companies are wanting to create videos about their products. So we are offering that now. It's just like a standalone sponsored video. Hey, I want you to create a 4.0 Solutions to create a video about my product. Obviously we still have our own opinions and we're going to give the honest truth about your product or software or whatever it is that the sponsor wants to feature. So we're just doing that as like a standalone option, which actually a couple of companies have already taken us up on that option. So we'll be announcing those as they drop. But so you'll know if you see a sponsored video that, hey, this content is sponsored by so-and-so. Yeah, but companies like Clarify, we're doing a more ongoing sponsorship partnership where we're sort of like doing more. So they're going to have a special link, and I don't have the link on me right now. So, but when we do have the link, we're going to send it out to you guys. When you sign up to Clarify, like you'll get a free additional signals. Like Clarify is like a time series data tool that lives in the cloud that you can do data analysis like built in. So think of it like, hey, I want to store time series data and I just want to send it somewhere. They're going to manage all of the storage, location, retrieval, and give me like visualizations, like trends and dashboards, but in a multi-user and social kind of way where you can like tag trends and tag other people and comment and provide context around your time series data. So it's a tool we've been looking at. We've been really excited about it. They are sort of an ongoing partner or sponsor. And when I do get the link, so you guys get a free bonus. Like, hey, when you sign up from 4.0 Solutions, you guys get a free bonus. And then we also, you get to support the channel. We get some commission from that. So that's kind of what we're doing with Clarify again. And then we're also offering sort of just ad rolls. Hey, this video is sponsored by so-and-so, 30, 60 seconds at the beginning of video. And then, our normal content. So that's kind of how sponsorships work now. Well, meeting canceled. So I'm here now. Hey, Mario. Yeah, see, Michael Daldell, he said he would do the Spanish translation for you. We're working. Yeah, that's one of the things we want to do is we're going to hire a service to translate into subtitles, but then we also want to, so we're going to have like foreign subtitles, but we also are looking at doing like actual dictation, narration, like foreign narration over the video. So it's a massive undertaking. Like I don't want to understate how much effort. It's going to be like more than doing the original videos in the first place, probably, because we have to work with many foreign language contractors and Japanese translation. Thank you, Taichi. But that was one of the things I said. I'm like, Sheryl, there's probably a lot of, that was one of the things is like, how do you it's not just talking about, a fiction book. Like this is technical language. So the translation really needs to be on point. So we need the translation reviewed by a subject matter expert, and we probably have those in our community. So we'll let you know if and when we can receive help from that. And so definitely keep an eye out for that. Hey, Dustin, welcome. So subscriber update. Yeah, so that's a little update on sponsors. Again, Digital Factory Mastermind. Couldn't do this without you guys. So thank you guys for going through the accelerator program and just supporting the content that we create. We're always looking at creating our products for you guys to make it better and help support what we do here at 4.0 Solutions to drive the industry forward. Yeah, subscriber update. We're at 17,350. So thank you. Awesome. We're over 3,600 members in Discord server. And we talked about the sponsors, enterprise training. Yeah, Clarify. Like, just go check out Clarify. You don't have to create an account yet. I'm not going to say if you want to go create an account and not use our code to sign up, that's fine too. Like, it's not just about the transaction. We're actually trying to like take Clarify to that next level with more of an ongoing partnership, like I was saying. So check out clarify.io. Thank you for sponsoring Clarify. And thank you everyone in our mastermind. So I want to give a shout out to some of the new members. So starting just in the last 7 days, we had a lot of people sign up for our program. So Michael Wesley joined the Industry 4.0 mentorship program. Welcome, Michael. Al Cattell joined Digital Factory Mastermind program. Welcome, Al. Tom T joined the Industry 4.0 mentorship program. Welcome, Tom. Paul Parks joined Digital Factory Mastermind program. Welcome, Paul. Steve Glore has joined the Digital Factory Mastermind program. Welcome, Steve. Trevor Pratt has joined the mentorship program. Welcome, Trevor. And Anthony George has joined the Industry 4.0 mentorship program. Welcome, Anthony. Welcome to all the new members. It's excited to have you guys all be part of the program again and support what we're doing here and hopefully get a lot of value, like 10 times the value of what the investment is for our training. We hope to give that back in value to our members. Also, new members that joined the Discord server and introduced themselves. I want to give a quick shout out to, there's only a handful this week, but that's one of the new segments we were thinking about introducing to this weekly live Q&A is like, hey, welcome to the new members who recently joined Discord and introduced themselves. Let's give them a quick shout out on our live Q&A and hopefully encourage more people to sign up and introduce themselves into the Discord server. So Silver Faye said, looks like a lot of people here introduce themselves, so I guess I will as well. My initials are AMA, and I am an inventor of sorts, a gamer, an artist, a philosopher, a bad speller, and avid shoe wearer, among other things. Well, so welcome, Silver. Great to have you here. I'd be interested to know how you found our Discord community, Silver. Al Cattell. Hey everyone, I'm originally from New Zealand and now based in London, UK. Have spent my career in web and app development for companies like Rolls-Royce, Mars, UK government, and currently working with a global manufacturer connecting machines via MQTT and rebuilding their MES. Love the opportunities in this space. Excited to discover this community. Welcome, Al. Moxman, hey everyone. I've been working in building automation for about 10 years. Currently, I'm an international BAS lead working on projects around the world. I work mostly with the Schneider product line and Niagara. Niagara? Is that a product line or like Niagara bottling? Anyways, welcome, Moxman. Drew D Priest. Hey, y'all. Drew here from the Midwest, US. Nearly 20 years in the smart building space. Started as a BAS field tech, climbing ladders and building systems in Tritium R2 and Honeywell XL10s before our outfit was bought by ALC. Floated around the startup world, enterprise IT, and now I'm at CBRE, supporting facilities, technology, BAS, data analytics, and more for a large tech client. Grateful for the opportunity to learn from you all here. Welcome, Drew. And last but not least, Jordan Day. Hey, everyone. My name is Jordan, and I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I work as an HVAC technician for a very large school district, hence my interest in building automation and automation in general. It's exciting to have a lot of folks from the building automation space. We were talking about, how is a unified namespace applied to other industries outside of manufacturing, like I don't know, healthcare, or obviously building automation. That one is really, a critical one, obviously. But yeah, like human analytics, or just like software companies, obviously heavily leveraging MQTT and unified namespace architectures. But like, what other industries could leverage this? What industries are you guys in? I'd be curious to know. Type it in the comments. All right, so that's all the welcome of the new members. So we got a lot of questions. So a lot of the discussion this week was revolving around OEE. A lot of questions came in. One actually was from last week, where it's like, "Hey Zach," or "Hey Walker, how do you do OEE between like a discrete process versus a continuous process, or maybe a batch process? What are the differences?" So we're going to talk about that. What else? We had a couple comments come in. So, and then I want to talk about this OEE pilot that I did, where, like I was saying at the beginning of this live stream, where it's an OEE pilot where, really long cycle times, they had no insight into their production process. Hey, where are we into this 3-week job? Are we 25% through? Are we 75% through? Is the machine even running? So are we operating efficiently? So we'll talk about that, how we use unified namespace there. So, and then Walker should be back next week to finish out weeks 4 and weeks 5 of our 5-week UNS Use Case Series. Any questions in the chat before I continue on? Yes, you will need an SME for the translation, Michael. Yep, thank you. Thomas said, "Just watching a nice sunset through my window, listening to today's session." Awesome. Welcome, Tomas. All right. So Mohammed Safwat had left a new comment on the IIoT mini course. Thank you, Walker. What is the difference between digital thread and UNS? I see a big overlap. And what also differentiates UNS from master data management, which is used in many big telecom enterprises? And is it somewhat similar, but this time for I 4.0? That's a great question, Mohammed. So we get this question a lot, probably mostly from like IT folks. There's actually, we talked to Scott Taylor, who's really like a master data, MDM, master data model influencer, right? That's all he talked about, master data. And master data is essentially all of the things and stuff within your organization. And when we talk about master data, we often, it's living within the ERP, within the ERP layer of our, manufacturing workflow. So we say, hey, we need to bring in this ERP data. So what differentiates that master data model, right, or your ERP master data model, which is the stuff that's in your business, all the products you make, all the employees, all your customers, all your contacts at your customers, kind of like CRM could also be in that ERP layer. So that's the master data model. The master data model, it'll often like be accessible through a database, but we want to make it accessible through the unified namespace. So other consumers of that information, and not just the master data model, but real-time data and other data that lives in the namespace, other information that was transformed from data lives in the namespace. You're going to want to view your master data model right alongside that data. So the unified namespace is, think of it like an API that you can access your master data model through. Yes, you can probably access it through like maybe a API that your ERP gives you, or you could access it probably through REST services or something like that. But or Business Connector or B2 XML, but the easiest way would probably be SQL. Hey, let me just query this database table that's open. You could use a tool like HiByte to convert SQL query into namespace data broken out into a list or broken down by topic. Or there's so many things you can do. The reason why you want to do that is so you can build your unified namespace, all your data, real-time data, master data, everything, all your events inside of one place. So any consumer can publish and subscribe to that information. So that's really what UNS is. Master data management is really just, your ERP data. It's really just, Michael Dowdell said SAP equals BAPI, pretty easy. HiByte also supports SparkplugB, yes. Anyways, I was listening to the supply chain mastermind, and someone said, or Walker said, like, someone asked a question, what about SparkplugB for supply chain? Is there a specification or standard, for supply chain information? And, the answer is still up in the air. So if anyone comes up with that, that's a major opportunity. Would SparkplugB work, or would we need some new, specification, standardization to integrate the supply chain, right? So that's kind of like what we'll actually be talking about probably on tomorrow's mastermind accelerator, like check-in call, like the weekly coaching call. So that's my answer. That's our perspective, Industry 4.0, right? We call it Industry 4.0, but it's really the fourth industrial revolution. It's the second information revolution. It's the one that comes after the digital revolution, right? The first information revolution was printing press. Now we've got, digital information revolution. Michael Dowdell said throughout, let's take a look at Opta 22, Factory Studio, Tassoff, Maple Systems, Redline, and others. Oh yeah, throughout's asked the question. I haven't found any other references to SparkplugB other than Ignition where it is used, and even some examples assumes you have Ignition installed. Are there any other solutions for SME? That's actually a question we haven't gotten in a while. Initially, when we were talking about SparkplugB, that was like a common thing. Like, hey, SparkplugB means you're just going to use Ignition. And we're like, no, it doesn't. There's so many things, so many applications you could build. You could build a unified namespace using SparkplugB with 50 different tools that without ever touching Ignition, without ever installing Ignition. Ignition's really where CirrusLink really kind of went to market initially first and also Ignition was a platform that just adopted the technology so perfectly. So I understand why that association exists, but it's completely false. We've been breaking that myth for years now, 3-4 years. So, but anyways, thanks for joining throughout. Tons of other vendors. Like PLC Next, Opta 22. The list goes on. SparkplugB. If we are a product manufacturing company for layer 1, so how can we give IoT solution to our customers through custom join according to customers' needs, or by designing a platform and selling it as a SaaS? Both depends. It depends on your digital strategy. Hey, what is your digital strategy? Are you trying to build a SaaS, or are you trying to augment your customer's ecosystem, right? What I think that would be a good question to ask is like, what level of maturity is your customer at? Is your customer already transformed, or are you selling to, you know, like rural people, like legacy clients? So that would be my question. And then how capable are you guys internally at supporting, that infrastructure? Are you wanting to become more of a product company? Right. There's a question on, capital, right? Can you afford to do that? Right. Can you afford the transition from selling, these pieces of equipment to essentially owning them and then just living off the revenue stream, which requires more capital, investment? It's like the Solar City model, right? Where they were like owning all the solar panels, and so they needed like millions of dollars just continually pumped into their business because they were like, essentially buying the solar panels and just leasing them to their clients. But yeah, so if you have ask any providing more context, Achieve, or share in the Discord, be happy to give more context. We are a manufacturing company for layer one. You mean tier one automotive? So how can we give IoT solutions to our customers throughout custom sewing according to customer needs or by? Yeah, I would not customize it based on your customer needs. I would figure out what the consensus of your customer needs, what's going to target 80% of all customer needs, and then develop that first. Try not to do very much custom, especially if you're trying to transition to a product company. Oh, hold on. My phone's going to die. All right, let me plug it in. I'm live streaming from my hotspot today because my internet here at my apartment is like down since like last night. So, sewing solution. That's the first time I've ever heard that. All right, that's one of those acronyms that it like makes things more confusing than it helps. So, but anyways, no, that's cool. All right, thanks, Al, or AI, or okay, cool. Show must go on. We've pulled together some good questions from the Discord in previous episodes to talk about for you. Walker is not able to join us, but we all know you are expecting another use case in continuation of the 5 use case series, and the show must go on. We have over X views on our Q&A podcast each week. That'd be over 1,000 views on YouTube, and a couple hundred on the actual podcast channels. I'm reading Sheryl's notes that she wrote for me. Thank you, Sheryl. This is really nice. So we answered Mohammed Swafat's question about what is it? And he also asked, what is the difference between digital thread and UNS? I'll link a video. There's a really good video where Walker talks about this is your IIoT strategy and it's going to fail, where he just goes deep into digital thread versus UNS. Also, AWS versus Azure IoT video talks about digital threading and UNS. Digital thread, just think proprietary stack. It's just edge to cloud connector, where you're not really able to provide context at multiple layers and bring that back down. And if you've watched enough of Walker's videos, you could just start talking this stuff. And that was one of the things someone said in the last mastermind, was like, just by joining this program, just by joining this group and listening to the recordings and being part of the live sessions every month, and you're able to have conversations at a higher level with, potential clients, internal clients, potential people that are looking to hire. So like my favorite thing is when someone gets a job from like what they learned here, either like a promotion or from a completely different field, transitioning into, digital transformation. That's awesome. That's why we try to simplify it to like make it accessible. Sheryl said, I have to be very careful what I put in those notes. I know. I was like reading it. I was like, maybe she put something that's only internal, but I would have censored that. I'm not. I do have Asperger's and I am on the spectrum, so there are cases where I don't have social perception. It's like I just don't pick up on social cues the same way that a neurotypical person would. So like I might say something that would be like, why would you say that and make the situation awkward or uncomfortable? But to me, I just don't understand what the issue is. So sometimes that does get me in trouble, but oftentimes that's like Walker will say like that's my strength, or because I can think outside the box. It's like where I live, and also I'm not afraid to do things based on what other people might think about them. Joseph Chandler said, I'm just getting started in this technology. How does one go from ground zero to somewhat competent in this space? Yeah, to start playing around with the technology. Obviously, we design our mentorship program for anyone to go from ground zero to being a technical resource, like a developer for IoT projects. And then, yeah, I guess ground zero to somewhat competent. Question is, where do you want to go? We're also talking about, hey, and within mentorship, what if there's someone who doesn't want to be a developer, like a technical developer, but maybe they want to be a user experience, UI UX developer, right? They want to take specifications from customer requirements, lead sprint reviews, right? Work with the agile development team. So we're like talking about how can we expand mentorship to target different personas, but at a high level, if you want to be a technical resource developer, mentorship. If you want to be, you know, digital transformation leader or liaison, CTO or CDO, chief digital officer. You want to be an architect. You want to be a consultant. That's really where mastermind kind of plays into. Um, if that's being somewhat competent. Um, there's a difference in investment level, although that it's not as bad. It really just depends on what you want to do. If you don't know, I would say just take the free IIoT mini course, get your feet wet there, start playing around with like Node-RED, watch some other free YouTube videos. You're in the right place. So, yeah, Ignition, Maker, Discord, Mastermind, Ignition, University to start. Yeah, I mean, if you're like Michael Dowdell and you kind of like a lone wolf down there in Mexico, you're kind of just doing your own thing, changing the automotive industry down there. You could just not join Mastermind, but just pay for consulting, right? That's what Michael does. He just pays for private consulting, just gets that information just as efficiently as possible, one-on-one. So don't forget data analysts. Yeah, that's also why we leverage Codecademy, so people can kind of sort of pick their own career path and learn. Hey, do I want to learn more of the scripting on Python? Do I want to learn more SQL and BI? Right? Say2 knows exactly what he wants to be. Say2 wants to be, digital transformation leader. And that's what he is. So he's leading a project. He's in Mastermind. Perfect example. Reach out to Say2. Super helpful too. Also getting more into like media, and which we love. We love more people talking about this and getting the message out. So let's see. Got the new members. So all right, what is the difference between OEE for discrete manufacturing versus continuous process versus batch process? Really not much. It's the same calculation. The calculation doesn't change, availability, quality, performance. You're still going to have those. Just the units really might change. Sort of a paradigm shift. You have to kind of change the way you think about it. Say2. Mastermind changed my life. Highly recommend it. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So at a high level for batch processes, really quality. So think of batch process like, hey, you're making, let's say you're making a batch of like bread or something. You got a big mix of dough. And you're hoping to get 1,000 loaves of yield out of this batch of bread that you're making, right? But let's say you spill some materials or something, or it doesn't yield as much as you thought it would. Let's say it only yields like 970 loaves of bread. You would have a 97% quality, right? So it's actual product yield versus your target yield. So what were you trying to yield? Think of it like kind of like if it was discrete manufacturing, it'd be like total production parts, or good parts divided by total parts, right? Or good parts divided by good parts plus bad parts. So That's kind of the discrete language that you would use. But for batch, think of it as yield. Hey, or if I'm trying to make, if it was liquid, I'm trying to make 1,000 liters of this sugar water, but I only get, 990 liters, right? 99% yield, 99% quality. So that's what you're thinking about for batch processes. Availability, same thing. It doesn't really change for batch processes. It's still like actual runtime versus like what you planned to run. And there's actually a really good a link that I'll drop in the chat that I pulled some information from before, while I was preparing for this. They actually broke it down even further. They broke it down based on repetitive manufacturing, discrete manufacturing, job shop manufacturing, where you're producing small batches of wide range of unique products, batch manufacturing, and then continuous process. So there's more resources there, but like I said, at high level, for batch processes, quality is actual product yield divided by target product yield. For continuous processes, that's where things change. For continuous process, think of cycle time measured in flow, volume over time. So cubic feet per second, right? Like cycle time is measured in flow. So it's a rate, right? If you guys got into calculus, think of it as a rate of change, like volume over time. So it's not really, it's not really just volume, it's volume over time. And also the other thing I found interesting, and I don't even know how true this is or if I would do this, but what they also said on this website was like, hey, for continuous processes, and let me know if you guys think this makes sense too, or if you think this is incorrect. But they recommended, hey, for continuous processes, the performance is actual hourly rate divided by average hourly rate over time. So because a continuous process, think of like maybe oil and gas refining, I think would be a continuous process, or like you're manufacturing, like let's say hydrogen or some continuous process where you're continually pumping out some flow volume over time of some product. They're saying the way you measure performance is your actual hourly rate divided by what is your average hourly rate over time. And I'm thinking, like, why is it not just your theoretical average max rate? Like, what is what should this plant produce? And the reason why this resource that I linked in the comments said that it's your average over time is because you're not really sure what you build this continuous process, and maybe there's raw materials going in, and there's different components in this continuous process chain. And so you may not know necessarily which one is the bottleneck per se. So you don't really know what the theoretical max is, I guess, is what they're saying. So they're saying performance is so really it's sort of actual hourly rate divided by average hourly rate over time. They didn't specify what that time is. So I guess that's a parameter you could probably like tweak, but like, let's just, I guess it makes sense. So it's basically saying in general, if we produce, 100 barrels per hour of oil, and right now we're producing 90, then it's saying, hey, you have a 90% performance. It doesn't matter, I guess, that at one point in the past, maybe for one point in time, we produced 120, because that may not be repeatable all the time. Maybe that was some, variation in this continuous process that caused it to be higher than normal. But again, it's not like a manufacturing line where it's like rated at, hey, no, you run it at X speed, it's 1,000 bottles per minute, very quantifiable. The continuous process, they're saying, hey, performance is actual hourly rate divided by average hourly rate over time. I guess that makes sense. I personally would ask Walker. I'd feel more comfortable asking Walker if he also agreed with that, because this is one of those things about OEEs, like everyone calculates it differently. So yeah. Oh, and then quality is, good units over total units. So, if the units are volume, right? Quality is just good units over total units. Same thing. It's like good parts over total parts. So it doesn't really change. The thing that really changes is the cycle time, And so for continuous processes, the cycle time goes to 0. That's why it's volume over time, right? It's like the derivative. And then for batch processes, you know, you have a cycle time that's like, you know, 8 hours or however long that batch takes. And then that batch is aiming for a certain yield, right? Um, see, for batch processing, performance is measured as total product quantity divided by the theoretical production rate times operating time. Yeah, so, you know, if this machine could theoretically make, you know, 1,000 loaves of bread in a 4-hour batch, then, you know, it's total product quantity divided by. So if it takes a little bit longer to produce, or, you know, yeah, so if yield is reduced, then that affects your quality number. But if if the total product quantity to produce over time, over your operating time is longer, then your performance goes down. That's actually, yeah, that's really interesting. I guess if a batch always takes the same amount of time, no matter what, you know, as soon as you hit start, then it always takes 4 hours, then theoretically your performance is always going to be 100%, right? You know, but if it, like, let's say it takes longer to heat up, or, you know, and then it accidentally takes it actually takes 4 hours and 30 minutes this time, and it was running the whole time. So it wasn't because of an availability issue. It was because it just literally took longer to produce this batch. Then that would affect your your performance. The thing is, you really just got to write these things down. Like, you got to map it out, write it down, write out all the units, and really just start to make sense of it, because otherwise, you know, you can get you can get sideways and lost pretty quickly. But no, it's a really good question. There was a lot of I want to read a couple comments that came in on the Discord, like, about this topic. So and Edge, which, no, it's a weird conversation for Edge, but in any case, Paul Vitor said, "I have a question from a continuous process plant point of view. How would edge driven be applied to remote IOs that use either Profinet or Ethernet IP? Should they be remote IO in an MQTT publisher, or would that be the job of the main CLP they are connected to? Imagine this in Greenfield project. Thank you." So I would ask Paul, so the remote IOs that use Profinet or Ethernet IP, what hardware exists on that edge? Is it just sensor data, right? Or do you have an edge device that you could access that could do edge computing? Because obviously, if you can do edge computing there, then do the, you know, do your edge calculations as close to the edge as possible. Then publish it to a unified namespace. So should they be a remote IO and MQTT publisher, or would that be the job? Yeah, the main CLP, or would that be, should they use a remote IO and MQTT? Yeah, so if you wanted to do MQTT publishing, then you could do publishing at the CLP, right? So connect the remote IO over Profinet or Ethernet IP, and then publish from the CLP. But yeah, you know, it just depends on how would edge driven be applied. Yeah, like, as close to the edge as possible, but not so far that it's unnecessary. So, like, you know, if you have, we say this all the time, like, if you have a plant, you know, facility that's all hardwired, and you have like an ignition SCADA or broker there, or gateway, screw it. Connect to everything via OPC UA, you know, pull a response, because you're on a network, so it's going to be fast. Then use your ignition gateway at that plant layer as your edge device, and publish into a higher level namespace for cloud analytics or for enterprise level data, you know, collection. But you don't need to go edge, you know, you don't need to go MQTT all the way to the edge, like, just for no reason. You know, you do what makes sense. This is where your architect comes in. Jeff Noonan said, and Jeff Noonan's like a genius. It is important to differentiate between an MES system and an analytical system that calculates OEE. This is a very good point. Some people call these systems MOM, for manufacturing operations management. So what Jeff's saying is, and he makes a good point. I did not build it. The use case we'll talk about here in 10 minutes or so was an analytical OE analytical system that calculates OE. It was the infrastructure with unified namespace with a microservice that calculates OE. It wasn't a full MES system, because a full MES system includes, all of the definitions. It's really like the object model for your whole manufacturing execution system. There were elements of MES that I had to incorporate into the back end or the master data model, but it didn't even scratch the surface on what MES is truly scope is capable of. So, but the E in MES is a crucial part, and an MES manages execution, which means organizing the materials, people, equipment, and time to get things done. See, um, I had an organization of the equipment, but my OE system didn't have, or my MES system, which wasn't an MES system, didn't have definition of all the people. Or I think it had operators log in, but it wasn't part of that whole object model, and it definitely wasn't wrapped in GraphQL and S95. And so continuous process. So then Jeff says continuous processes like mining, oil and gas, cement, water, wastewater, and others have less need for execution in a production sense, and typically have other application that manage the execution of other tasks like maintenance and quality. That's an interesting point. You're right. There really is, a continuous process is really, I said this earlier. I was like, a continuous process is a batch process where you only ever have one batch and there is no end time. And the start time was, when you started the plant. So yeah. So, there's no execution there. It's not really, there's not these batches, or there's not these discrete production runs that need to get executed, but there is still, OEE, right, of a continuous process, right? That would be a good one. What is the OEE of this water treatment plant, right? Hey, that's one I've always thought of. Like, I've known to calculate efficiency on motors and water pumps and stuff, but one thing I've never done, but would be interesting now, is like calculating what is the overall equipment effectiveness of this water treatment plant. It usually produces 1.5 million gallons per day of purified water, but today it's only producing 1 million. So, we got 70% performance, right? Like, that'd be pretty cool, right? What is the availability? What is the downtime reasons of this treatment plant, right? So there's still OEE type. Well, there's still MES functions, but not as much on the execution layer. Good point, Jeff. Thanks for chiming in. I love how many smart people we have in the Discord. It's freaking awesome. TC said, this is a good question. It seems like a hierarchical data model might work well for a continuous process, but might not be the correct choice for a discrete process. From what I understand, the unified namespace, UNS, only contains the current state of the environment and is not a persistent store. That's not true. You can have it retain what the most recent value was. So it's persistent in that sense, right? You can have it retain the value for new subscribers, that they'll get the most recent value. It's not a historical store, but it is persistent. So I'm not sure if there's a misunderstanding there, but she said, from what I understand, the unified namespace only contains the current state of the environment and is not a persistent store. The persistent storage of the data has to be accomplished by some other means. I believe it was mentioned in this community that Tesla uses a UNS architecture. It would be interesting to know what data model Tesla uses for their UNS and what data model they use to persist their production data. I know Tesla's a huge user of Ignition, and I know that the Ignition historian module is not to be taken seriously as a historian. So, they're obviously using multiple technologies, right? It's not just which platform are they using, it's which technology are they using. They're using a technology-driven approach to building solutions. Elon Musk is all about, hey, Tesla is just a cybernetic collective of machines and people and equipment and so imagine a body that didn't have a central nervous system, right? Why would you not want your left hand connected to your brain, also connected to your right hand, to be able to coordinate things? Yet we try to manufacture 80 plants around the world where none of the plants talk to each other, right? Yet a company, all it really is just a cybernetic collective, an organism of, machines, people, right? It is it's its own entity. And so unified namespace is just a methodology. It's a set of rules. It's a philosophy that you would use to solve that problem that is being a digital company, right? Having a digital strategy. Yeah. So, which data model Tesla uses is, it just depends, right? Where are we talking? Are we talking about their, the consumer facing application with their on the edge on the cars? Are we talking about in their manufacturing environment? Are we talking about their research and development, right? Where in their namespace are you talking about? It depends. We'll change the answer to specifically what solution they're using. Are they using InfluxDB and a high byte? Are they using, Canary and an ignition historian? There may be cases where they're not using ignition because, maybe there's use cases where they need something that ignition can't do, right? So there's trade-offs there. We talk about other platforms like, Tatsoft and Factory Studio or frameworks all the time. Boom, technology driven, right? There may be a specific use case for that. Ranker Shah, who works with Litmus, said, I agree that OEE is going to be more difficult for continuous process and may even be impossible for certain applications. To your point, the biggest hurdle is going to be getting everyone to agree on how to measure it. Yeah. I think this issue actually gets easier for more regulated industries. That's a good point. Yeah. One application I have been looking at for would be running OEE calculations on purified water skids, specifically for the pharma industry. Oh, great application, Ryan Kershaw. Yeah, totally possible. I hope something in this conversation helped, or that resource that I linked. And yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer OEE can be calculated for anything, and you can go even as abstract as what is the OEE of my video editor, right? Or what is the OEE of my programming staff? The question is, how do you calculate it, right? Is it lines of code, right? Is it number of tasks they were given at the beginning of a day versus number of tasks they completed at the end of the day? Like, how is that measured? But once you define out how it's measured, the calculation is pretty easy, right? The hard part is defining how it's measured. So, and getting, real-time measurements of that measure versus, hey, I worked 8 hours, like, actually tracking, when someone's being productive versus when they're not being productive, or, what is the schedule, right? What is the schedule, right? So once you answer those questions, then you can calculate OE. You get persistence with QS. Yes. Yes. I'm not sure which one though. It's like QS 1 or 2. But often that's just defined like in the software. So you just say what you want it to do, and then it'll put in that message into the payload. So usually you can usually take that part for granted. But it's good to know. That was the last screenshot of the questions that Sheryl had gathered in the Discord. Again, thank you for the participation in the Discord. Let's get into the use case because we got about 10 more minutes, so then we'll wrap it up. All right, UNS use case number 3, digital OEE for high value, long lead time CNC process. So this is a big aerospace manufacturer. They're really like a fully vertically integrated company, all the way from like mining the materials to producing steel, all the way to value add engineered products, right? Like fasteners or rings or, things for aerospace, other industries too, but primarily this was a really big aerospace, defense type of supplier, massive organization. So the part of and they actually split that business into 2. So they had like really like their A business doing all their mining and their B business doing all their engineered value added, CNCing and rings and fasteners and straps and all that kind of stuff. So massive organization. For some reason, they really wanted to go all Siemens. Like they really just had a thing about Siemens. And the company the integrator I was working for was literally doing like a dozen different projects with this one organization at one time. And knowing what I know now with, the approach that I would take, uh, really trying to transform this organization in Industry 4.0 company would really be to start with the digital strategy. Hey, let's not just go to Siemens to digitally transform us. Literally, that was their strategy. It was like, let's just use everything Siemens, like all the way down to the IPC to Somatic IT, which was like their MES system, which honestly, Somatic IT is like something that Siemens bought. And I did not hear great things about that initiative. But the initiative that I was working on, so really, yeah, we should have started with the DTMA, done a digital transformation maturity assessment, started with their digital strategy, had a more cohesive approach to actually transforming the whole business rather than doing a dozen, individual projects that are standalone at one time. But, if you work for an Industry 3.0 company, that's their bread and butter. that's what they know. They don't know any better. So, but anyways, this company was all like a Siemens shop, and it was because one of their directors had like this relationship with, I think he was German and also used to be the CTO of Siemens or something like that. There was definitely someone's house got built by Siemens. Multiple houses probably got built by Siemens in this instance here. But in any case, the application that I was working on was technology driven, right? Within this one plant, which was actually like a rogue plant that they had bought. It's actually like in Rancho Cucamonga, and it was like really close to me, so the commute was nice. So anyways, I did WinCCOA technology driven, digital MES for a CNC process. They had dozens of CNC machines from all different sizes, but this pilot encompassed two of their mega, I wanted to call them giga CNCs, but really that would be giving them too much credit, but they really were mega sized CNCs. I mean, there was two in this big building, literally had two of them, probably like 50 feet across. And they were used for CNCing 12-foot, 10 to 12-foot rings. So like big chunk of a ring that was forged into this shape. Then they CNC'd it to a specific specification that was used for aerospace. Really, these were like the rings that would go around the jet engines, like the housing. So it's like this, 12-foot diameter, 4 or 5 foot tall, ring that had all these unique features to it, right? So they would get, this was like $100,000 ring, or maybe even more. I don't know. But, this thing alone, the titanium was expensive. So, and the CNC process would take weeks to finish. Like we're talking, multiple days would go by and they're just barely making progress on this ring. And then they're doing the inside and then the outside, and then they're cutting it again. Sometimes they have to rework. Like they do one cut and it didn't go well, so they have to go back and rework it. So we're like, hey, when they go back and rework it, we're going to make that a ding to quality, right? So that was the question we were faced with, was how do we take this multi-long week? Really, the cycle time was like, hey, this should take 2 to 3 weeks. So one, that's not very precise, and two, how do we measure where they're at in that 2 to 3 week process? So the strategy we came up with was, let's use the Siemens WinCCOA software. Let's have an edge panel PC at each of these, the two mega CNCs, and two of they were larger, more Seiki type machines, but they were used to manufacture like rings in the size of like 4 to 5 feet, housings and different things like that. So those were like, they're still large CNCs, but not like super large. So we were doing, two different variants of CNCs to kind of prove that this model would work, whether or not it was this larger CNC or this other CNC that also took, multiple days to produce a part. So we went with that strategy. The Edge PC had Siemens WinCCOA. It had a Kepware OPC server with MT Connect to connect to the FNUC controllers. The FNUC controller would tell us where they were at. Really, they had like this N number, this block number. So the CNC had a program, and the program we would know what part the operator was working on. I think the operator would tell us what job number they were working on, so we would know what part they were working on. So we knew they had this simulation software that would simulate this program, the CNC program, and define, hey, of these 60 operations, of these 100 operations, N101, N102, N103, N201, N202, N203. Like literally, that's kind of like what the block numbers were. Their simulation software gave us this output that was like, hey, this block should take 5 minutes. This block should take 10 minutes. So we broke down this one large part that took weeks into hundreds of small units of production that were the tasks that made up this large CNC operation. So that's how we decided what the production units were. Where they would be units of good production or units of good CNC operations. So, let's say they operator would go in the morning and, today he's supposed to do 5 blocks because this block takes 55. I mean, some of these blocks would take like an hour, right? So we knew that their performance would be 100% if by the end of the day they got, 8 hours worth of produced blocks done in 8 hours of runtime. Now, if the availability went down, the machine went down for other reasons, we would take that out of the availability. But from the performance perspective, we were saying, hey, look, for example, let's just say if this one CNC operation should have taken you 8 hours, or these 10 operations should have taken you 8 hours, but it really took you 9 hours, that's where we would dock them on the performance. And then, so that's availability. It was pretty simple. We would use we would run the machine state logic on that edge PC using a WinCCOA. But then once we would do all that, we'd do the real-time OEE calculation, and then we would transmit those tags to a central WinCCOA server. It wasn't using MQTT. It was using, I think, HTTP. It was using the built-in distributed tag functionality that WinCCOA gives you. So, so it was really building a unified namespace because all the different machines, and that was the idea, is they could just add a new edge PC, add a new machine, and it would pop into, same application, just parameterized. It would pop into the central PC, but the central server, we would do dashboarding. They do all the scheduling. It did all the backend code, which is where we wrote the API for the SQL database. So the edge PCs wouldn't really hit the database directly. They would hit the API, or, the tag, the state change would just go across, and then the central server would do all the processing of, SQL stuff. So, but really it was microservices and OEE engine with full API, with stored procedures, built-in WinCCOA, full technology-driven unified namespace approach. And that's how we solved OEE for that particular customer, right? It took a lot of coordination, right? We had to get some of the challenges were getting the accurate estimates of how long these parts would actually take. Some of them were actually pretty scary accurate. Like they're saying, hey, it should have took you 5 minutes. It took them like 4 minutes and 59 seconds. Like it's like, wow, damn, that simulation was pretty accurate. But some of the other problems were, when the machine stops, why did it stop? Because often they would just open the door. So we would know, hey, the machine stopped because the door opened, but why did they open the door? Oftentimes it was like for chip cleaning. There's all these metal chips that would sort of get stuck. So the operator would have to open it up and clean it out so it wouldn't, or maybe it's busted insert. I need to change the insert, the tool or the bit, I guess. So sometimes we could tell when that happened. Sometimes we'd have to rely on the operator to let us know. But the good news was we just simply wrote a script that when the machine would stop, it would automatically open a pop-up that gave them a list of, or really just an array of buttons that they just press whatever button was that reason of why it stopped. And then there was actually an interlock. So and I was really against doing this because I didn't want operators to hate me, but we had it set up where there was an interlock with a relay, and they didn't interlock it, but in theory, it was triggering a relay to prevent them from restarting the machine until they had entered in that most recent downtime event reason. Again, I wasn't there when that was implemented, but it was on their roadmap. So, again, it's a cultural thing, right? That's where the DTMA would come in, right? Who are your allies of your initiative? Who are your cavemen, right? Where does it make most sense to deploy this PLC? Right. And that's why I was like, this is ridiculous. Cause I'm over here in this plant building this, really kind of a custom coded MES, which took a lot of time and a lot of development, but would make sense if you scaled that out across other plants. But it's like in this other plant, they're doing somatic IT. And, it's like, guys, what's your digital strategy? Right? What technology is it based on? That was a question that came up, and we'll wrap it up here. We'll end it on this. Someone asked, what are the questions in the last podcast? Jay asked, 4 questions you should ask your vendors to see if they meet your minimum technical requirements. Do you know what he's referring to? And I said, yes, I do know what I was referring to. And I shared the screenshot too. It's an excerpt from our digital mastermind notebook, but 4 questions you should ask the vendor before purchasing a new piece of equipment, hardware, or software. Number 1, what data will this generate? 2, how will this data be formatted and organized? Number 3, how will the data generated be accessed by external consumers? Number 4, does this smart thing support insert IIoT protocol and use enter IIoT protocol standard? Does it support MQTT and SparkplugB, right? Or whatever your technology stack is built on? And then Rick added a good one, number 5. Do I need to pay any extra fees or licenses to unlock this data? So that was a good one. But anyways, that's questions that I would ask, and that was questions that were not asked with this client that should have been asked, and then they would have had a cohesive digital strategy and not been wasting, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in development time and effort across many different initiatives that had no end goal in mind, right? Anyways, any questions before I dip? Jeff, thank you for joining. In preparation for the Mastermind Accelerator session, I connected with Dr. Tony Burns. Funny enough, Dr. Tony Burns actually, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but it just recently joined our IIoT university. I noticed, I'm like, oh, hey, look, we know this guy. That name looks familiar, but maybe he joined the Discord server or something like that, or mini course, or would be one of the 2 main ways that you would get on that list. But anyways, thanks, Jeff. We should invite him on. We should invite him on the podcast because, Walker did speak very highly of him. Literally SPC expert, right? Yeah, quality. He's just joined. He just joined the 4.0 Solutions Discord server. Duh. That's exactly what I was saying. Anyways, cool. That's awesome news. Thank you, Alan, for joining. It makes sense you use Somatic WinCCO Open Architecture since they wanted to be exclusive to Siemens. Yeah, and we always say WinCCOA is a great platform, but Ignition is a great platform. Tatsoft Frameworks is a great platform, but it's no excuse for a lack of a digital strategy, right? Like, we don't do projects unless you have a digital strategy and you have a sound architecture, right? We just, go back to step 1. Anyways, I think you'd be interested. Hey, if he is, Jeff, let me know. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Remember to subscribe to the 4.0 Solutions podcast on your favorite podcast player. If you like our podcast, give it a review on iTunes. We always aim for 5 stars. That would be awesome. Help like this video on YouTube. Subscribe to our podcast. Subscribe to our channel. Join the Industry 4.0 Discord server. And we'll see you guys next week. Or see you guys tomorrow on the Mastermind Accelerator call. Oh, and also last announcement, this Friday's, originally we had a mastermind scheduled for this Friday. It is now moved to next Friday because of the holidays this week. So that announcement went out. You should have got it in your email, but I just wanted to make a note of it now. So thanks, guys. See you guys.